My mother demanded I cancel my wedding and give $50,000 for my sister's dream wedding. When I refused, she threw coffee at my face in front of 60 guests. Then my fiancé walked in and revealed the secret I'd been keeping from all of them for years. The coffee hit my face before my brain registered that she'd actually thrown it. That's the thing nobody tells you about being assaulted by your own mother in front of 60 people. The physical sensation arrives first, before the humiliation, before the shock, before the slow and devastating understanding of what has just happened in front of your extended family, your sister's future in-laws, and 3 women from your mother's church group who have known you since you were 7 years old. The burning came first. A sharp, immediate scorch across my left cheek and jaw, soaking through the collar of the ivory blouse I'd spent 40 minutes ironing that morning because I wanted to look professional, pulled together, like the version of myself I'd worked for a decade to become. Then I screamed. Not a word, just sound. The involuntary animal sound of someone who has just had hot liquid thrown at their face. The room went silent in the specific way that rooms go silent when something has happened that cannot be unhappened. My mother stood across the table, hand still extended, the now empty coffee cup in her palm. Her face was red, her chest was heaving, and she looked at me, her older daughter, burning and dripping and staring at her, and said the 6 words that I have not been able to stop hearing since. Now look what you made me do. I should start from the beginning, or closer to it anyway. My name is Rebecca Harlan. I am 34 years old. I am a founding partner at Blackwell Capital Partners, a venture capital firm headquartered in Chicago's West Loop with roughly $800 million in assets under management. I did not come from money. I came from a 3-bedroom house in Naperville, Illinois, a father named Gerald who sold commercial insurance, and a mother named Diane who ran the household like a corporation and me like an afterthought. I put myself through the University of Illinois on a combination of merit scholarships, Pell Grants, and 2 part-time jobs, one at the campus library, one at a steakhouse on Green Street where I worked Friday and Saturday nights until 2 in the morning. I graduated with honors, took an analyst position at a mid-market private equity firm, got my MBA from Booth at night while working full-time, and spent the next 8 years building the professional network and track record that eventually let me co-found Blackwell with 2 partners in 2019. My sister Madison is 28. She is beautiful and charming and has never held a job for longer than 14 months. She graduated from DePaul with a communications degree that my parents paid for in full. Tuition, room, board, sorority dues, a study abroad semester in Florence that I remember being emailed about with a casual, "Isn't it wonderful?" And she has spent her post-graduation years working in marketing for companies that don't require her to be anywhere before 9:30. She is my mother's daughter in ways I have spent my adult life trying not to analyze too carefully. My fiancé Aaron Choi is 37, an ER attending physician at Northwestern Memorial with a residency from Johns Hopkins, and the specific brand of quiet competence that comes from 10 years of making life or death decisions in real time. He is the steadiest person I have ever met. He is also, at the time of this story, the only person outside of my attorney and my accountant who knew the full scope of what I'd been doing for my family for 3 years. I had been very deliberately keeping it that way. It started, the secret I mean, in the fall of 2021. My father called me on a Wednesday afternoon. This was unusual. My father did not call without a reason, and his reasons were usually routed through my mother, who preferred to control the information flow in our family the way an air traffic controller manages a busy runway. But this call came directly, and his voice had a quality I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. Small, compressed. "Beck, we have a situation." The situation was the mortgage. They'd refinanced in 2018 to fund, I would later learn, Madison's Florence semester and a kitchen renovation my mother had wanted for a decade. The new payment was $2,147 a month. My father's commissions had dropped significantly during COVID. They were 4 months behind. The bank had sent a notice of intent to foreclose. He asked me not to tell my mother he'd called. He did not ask for money directly. He just told me the situation. But he was my father, and he sounded like a man who had run out of other options. And I had money, and so I did what I did. I called my attorney, Dana Wexler at Harlan and Pierce. Yes, same last name, no relation, and we set up a blind trust, formally named the Lakeview Family Revocable Trust, structured so that the mortgage payments would appear to come from a routine disbursement account with no obvious connection to me. The first payment went out in November 2021. The payments have gone out every month since, 37 months, $105 out of $139 in total, between the back payments and the ongoing monthly disbursements. I had told no one, not Aaron, not at first. He found out 8 months in, when he found a statement from Dana's office on my desk and sat me down and asked me, with the particular directness of someone who spends his working hours making sure people don't die of avoidable things, to please just tell him what was going on. I told him. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Does your mom know?" "No." "Does Madison?" "No." "Are you planning to tell them?" I looked at him. What would change if I did? He thought about it. He's honest enough to think carefully before he answers questions like that, which is one of the things I love about him. Finally, he said, "Probably nothing good." Exactly. He nodded. He did not push. He pulled me into him and held on for a moment. And then he said, "Okay, what do you need from me?" That was 2 years ago. I had, in that time, also quietly paid off Madison's student loans, $31,400, processed through the same trust with a memo line that read read Federal Loan Forgiveness Program disbursement, which was plausible enough that Madison had apparently Googled it, decided she'd qualified for some Biden-era program, and celebrated by buying a new couch. I had not corrected this impression. I'm telling you all of this now so that you understand the specific geometry of what happened at Madison's engagement party. I was not a selfish person. I was the opposite of a selfish person. And my mother threw coffee in my face. Aaron had a shift that morning. He was in the ER until 2, which meant he'd be coming straight from the hospital to the party, still in his street clothes, probably running late because Aaron is always running late when he's coming from a shift because the ER doesn't care about your social calendar. He told me he'd be there by 3:30. The party started at 2. I arrived at 2 on the dot in the ivory blouse and a pair of tailored black pants, carrying a gift I'd spent 45 minutes selecting, a Vitamix blender that Madison had mentioned once in passing 8 months ago. I remember exactly when she mentioned it because I wrote it down, the way I write down details about people I love, because I have always paid attention to what the people in my life want, even when they don't pay attention to me. My mother met me at the door. She was wearing the silk blouse she saved for special occasions and her real pearl earrings, and she had that particular social energy she gets at parties. Elevated, bright-eyed, already performing. She kissed my cheek, told me my hair looked nice, asked if Aaron was parking. He's coming from the hospital. He'll be here by 3:30. Of course he will, she said, in a tone that was not quite a criticism of Aaron's schedule, but carried the faint outline of one. I went inside. The house was full. 60 people, easy. Family, friends, neighbors, people I recognized and people I didn't, all arranged around a furniture configuration designed to make my parents' living room look more impressive than it was. Flowers from Trader Joe's, rearranged in the good vases, champagne flutes my mother had rented from a party supply company in Wheaton. Madison at the center of everything in a sundress that cost more than my first month's rent at my first Chicago apartment, laughing and glowing and entirely in her element. Bradley, her fiancé, was stationed near the kitchen, drink in hand, backslapping Madison's relatives with the enthusiasm of a man auditioning for a role. I had known Bradley for 14 months, and I had, in that time, formed no strong opinion of him, except that he smiled slightly too long at people after they said something he wanted to agree with, and that his eyes moved to exits before other people's did. I got a drink. I said hello to relatives. I made 20 minutes of the small talk I've been making my whole life, the kind that requires you to be present enough to respond, but distant enough that none of it lands anywhere. At 2:31 p.m., my mother touched my arm. Come help me with the cheese board. In the kitchen. This was not about the cheese board. She steered me past the kitchen without stopping and into my father's study, a small room off the hallway with bookshelves and a desk, and the particular atmosphere of a space that is used primarily for paying bills and avoiding difficult conversations. My father was already there, which told me this had been choreographed. My mother closed the door. She turned around. She smiled her company smile, the one she deploys when she wants something and wants you not to realize it until she's already gotten it. Madison's wedding is going to cost $50,000, she said, as if she were announcing the weather. I kept my face neutral. Okay, we thought you'd want to contribute. I looked at her, at my father, who was studying his shoes with the focus of a man who would very much rather be somewhere else, then back at her. No, I said. The smile flickered. Rebecca? No, Mom. I'm planning my own wedding. Aaron and I have a budget, and I'm not pulling from it to fund Madison's, after everything we've done for you. The smile was gone now. You saved every penny for Madison, I said. I kept my voice level. I had practiced this voice for 34 years. My college was loans and library shifts. My MBA was nights and weekends. Everything I have, I built. You know that. Family helps family. I agree, I said, which is why I'd appreciate it if you'd let me leave this room. She stepped closer. You have more money than you know what to do with. You don't actually know what I have. You're a partner at a firm. Mom, I picked up my drink. The answer is no. It's not going to change. Let's go back to the party. She was quiet for 4 full seconds. I counted. Then she opened the door and went back into the party, and I made the mistake of following her because I did not yet understand what she was about to do. She walked straight to the center of the room. She did not raise her voice. She didn't have to. The room had one of those accidental lulls that happen at parties every 20 minutes or so, a window of collective silence, and she stepped directly into it. I have to say something, she said, because I think it needs to be said. Her voice was warm, the way a knife is warm after it's been sitting in your side for a few seconds. My daughter Rebecca, my executive daughter, has been asked to help make her sister's wedding the celebration it deserves to be, and she has told us no. She let that land. I just want everyone here to understand where we are as a family. 60 heads turned. I felt it in my chest first, that specific nauseating pressure of being exposed in public, the thing I had spent my adult life learning to armor against, and had apparently not successfully armored against enough. Madison's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't known, I realized, or she was performing not knowing with impressive commitment. I still, to this day, am not entirely sure which. Bradley's smirk came from the corner so naturally, so involuntarily, that I think he didn't even notice he was doing it. My father looked at the floor. Let's talk about this privately, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected, given that my hands were no longer entirely steady. Mom, this isn't the place. You want privacy? She turned back toward the side table, the one with the coffee service, because my mother always has a coffee service at parties. Silver carafe and the good cups, a detail I have sat beside at 100 family events with without once considering that it could be used as a weapon. She picked up a full cup, she looked at me, and she threw it. The next 20 minutes exist in my memory in fragments. Burning, screaming, gasps. A woman I didn't recognize handing me a fistful of cocktail napkins. The wet weight of the blouse against my skin. My mother's voice, doing the extraordinary thing of trying to regain the social register. It was an accident, I didn't mean to. While 60 people watched her try to manage the optics of having just assaulted her daughter. I sat in the chair someone pulled out for me, pressing napkins to my face. Madison was nearby, not asking if I was okay. I registered this in the way you register details when your nervous system is running on some kind of emergency backup power. Noted, filed, examined later. She was talking to someone, something about the party being ruined, about how this always happened, as if my cheek had volunteered to be burned in order to inconvenience her afternoon. Bradley had moved closer. I could feel him recalculating something. My father was frozen in the doorway between the study and the living room, which is where he has spent most of my childhood and adolescence, in the threshold of rooms where things were happening to me, present enough to see it, not present enough to stop it. The burn on my cheek was not severe. I knew this clinically. I'd already assessed it with the particular detachment of someone who has learned over decades to assess damage to herself with some emotional remove. No blistering. Significant redness. It would fade in a few days. It was not the kind of thing that required a hospital. It was, however, the kind of thing that required Aaron. The front door opened at 3:22 p.m. He came in the way he always comes into a room. Unhurried, still in the blue Patagonia fleece he wore under his coat on hospital days, slightly windblown, looking around to find me before he'd fully closed the door. That's the thing about Aaron. He always finds me first. He saw my face from across the room. He crossed it in 4 steps. Not running. Something more deliberate than running. What happened? He took my face in his hands, gently, carefully, the hands of someone who knows how to assess an injury without causing more of one. Are you hurt? I'm okay. You have a burn on your... I know, I'm okay. My mother materialized at his elbow, her social smile reassembled with impressive speed. Aaron, so glad you're here. Just a little family disagreement. Rebecca was being difficult, and I'm afraid things got heated. Aaron looked at my burned cheek. He looked at my ruined blouse. He looked at the coffee stains on the hardwood floor. Dark, spreading, already drying at the edges. Then he looked at my mother. His voice dropped to something very quiet. You threw hot liquid at your daughter because she wouldn't give you money. It was an accident. Stop talking. The room went silent in a different way than it had gone silent when my mother threw the coffee. That silence had been shock. This one was something else. The silence of 60 people suddenly and collectively uncertain about the load-bearing assumptions of the afternoon. Nobody had ever told my mother to stop talking. In 34 years of watching people interact with Diane Harlan, I had never once seen anyone tell her to stop talking. Not my father, not her sister, not her pastor. She managed people by moving faster than they could object, by keeping the social current flowing so smoothly that stopping it felt rude. Aaron had stopped it. He turned to face the room. All of it. Every guest, every relative, every person holding a glass or a plate or a complicated expression. I have kept quiet about this family for 2 years, he said. I watched Rebecca navigate things I won't describe at a party. I kept quiet because she asked me to. She's more protective of you than you deserve. He paused. I'm done keeping quiet. My mother laughed, the nervous laugh she uses when she's afraid. Aaron, this is a private family matter. You want to talk about private? His voice didn't rise. It never rises. This is what makes Aaron Aaron. The ER trained it out of him, the impulse to escalate. He operates in crisis with a steadiness that most people can't manufacture. For the last 37 months, Rebecca has been paying your mortgage every month through a trust specifically structured so you wouldn't know it was her. The sound that went through the room was not a gasp. It was more complicated than that. 60 people all making the same rapid internal calculation simultaneously, their faces doing what faces do when a fact lands that reorganizes everything around it. My mother's face went the color of the white tablecloth on the dining room table. That's not possible. Your lender is First Midwest Bank, Aaron said. He was not reading from notes. He had memorized this. I understood, watching him, that he had spent time preparing this, which meant he had known, for some period, that this moment was coming. The trust making the payments is called the Lakeview Family Revocable Trust. Your account number ends in 7741. The back payments totaled $11,388. The ongoing monthly payment is $2,147. A beat. Your house would have been foreclosed in the winter of 2021 without her. She saved it, and today you threw coffee in her face for not giving you more. My father stepped forward from the doorway. He looked at me. Rebecca, he said, is that true? I nodded once. The room broke open. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, a woman who has attended every family event I can remember, and spent most of them monitoring my mother's social performance with proud satisfaction, knocked her champagne glass sideways. It didn't break, just tipped and poured, and she didn't notice. 2 of Bradley's friends from the corner of the room had pulled out phones. Madison stood with both hands pressed flat against her sternum, like she was trying to hold herself together from the outside. Aaron wasn't finished. And Madison. He turned, and his voice was gentler now. Aaron always makes these calibrations. The way he escalates and de-escalates with the precision of someone who knows what different kinds of people need to hear different kinds of things. Those student loans you thought were forgiven by a government program, Rebecca paid every dollar, $31,400. She didn't want you to feel embarrassed embarrassed about it. Madison's hand flew to her mouth. She didn't tell you, Aaron continued, because she wasn't looking for credit. She was just taking care of you, the way she's been taking care of this family for a decade without being asked and without being thanked. The room was very quiet now, the particular quiet of people who are reassembling their understanding of someone they thought they knew. She's also, Aaron said, and his voice changed for this, not louder, but clearer, a broadcast frequency rather than a directed one, not just a finance executive. She's a founding partner at Blackwell Capital Partners, one of the top venture capital firms in the Midwest. She built it from nothing, and she's been writing your mortgage checks every month while she did it. The gasp for this one was cleaner, more unanimous. Someone at the back said clearly, Blackwell? The Blackwell? Bradley took one step toward me. His entire energy had reorganized itself, the way water reorganizes around a new stone. I had no idea you were so... Don't, I said. He stopped. He had the decency to look for just a moment, like he understood exactly what he'd been about to do and exactly how it would have looked. My mother hadn't moved. She was standing in the center of her living room, in the house she had not lost because of me, at her younger daughter's engagement party that I had paid for with my sister's forgiven loans, and her face had gone a color I can only describe as extinguished, like something had gone out. She reached for the back of the nearest chair. Her mouth was opening and closing without producing sound. Then her knees buckled. I want to be precise about what happened next, because this is the part people always ask about. She did not fall dramatically. It was not a movie faint, not slow and graceful and caught by someone in time. Her knees bent, and she went sideways, and she went down. And the sound of it was the specific sound of a person losing contact with the floor, and someone screamed, and then the room was in motion all at once. Two people were on the floor beside her before I processed what had happened. Bradley's mother, who turned out to be a retired nurse, took control with a brisk efficiency I will always be grateful for. Give her room. She's breathing. Does anyone have emergency experience? Aaron was already there. He was already there because of course he was, because he is an emergency physician and someone had fallen. And whatever he thought of my mother in that moment, he is constitutionally incapable of not helping someone who needs help. He checked her pulse, asked questions, told Bradley's mother she'd done the right thing, and spoke calmly into his phone. I heard him give the address, describe the situation, say possible vasovagal syncope, no cardiac indicators, all within about 45 seconds of her hitting the floor. The ambulance came in 9 minutes. My mother regained consciousness after about 3 minutes on the floor. This is apparently typical for a stress-induced faint. Aaron explained it to me later with the particular gentleness he uses when he's giving me medical information he knows I didn't want to need. She was conscious and confused when the paramedics arrived. She did not look at me. The guests arranged themselves in the uncertain way guests do when a party has become something else. Some people left quietly. Some gathered in small groups near the walls. Madison sat on the stairs with Bradley beside her, and she was crying now. Really crying. Not the performance from earlier, the kind that comes when something real has broken through. I stood near the window. Aaron came to stand beside me when the paramedics had it under control. Ready to go? He said quietly. I looked at my mother on the stretcher. Small somehow, in a way she had never looked to me before. 61 years old and small. The pearls still in her ears. The silk blouse she saved for good occasions. I looked at Madison on the stairs. Her mascara was tracking and her dress was wrinkled, and she looked, for the first time in my memory, like she didn't know what to do with her hands. I looked at the house around me. The rented champagne flutes, the Trader Joe's flowers in the good vases, the coffee stains on the hardwood floor, drying dark. I picked up my bag. More than ready, I said. We walked toward the door. And that's when my father grabbed my arm. Gerald Harlan is 63 years old and has spent most of that time, to my observation, existing in the margins of his own life. He is not a bad man. He is a man who made peace very early with the way things were, and maintained that peace by not looking too hard at whether things should be different. I have loved him in the complicated way you love someone who could have helped you and chose, instead, to stay comfortable. His hand on my arm was not firm. It was the grip of someone who was afraid I would say no. I turned around. His face was, I am going to try to be precise about this, broken. Not upset, not guilty, broken open. The way a face looks when something that has been held in place for a very long time has finally given way. Rebecca, he said, there's something else. Something your mother never wanted you to know. I looked at him. Aaron went still beside me. Dad, I said carefully. What is it? He looked at the room, at the guests still scattered around us, at Madison on the stairs, at the paramedics with my mother, and then he looked back at me and he made a decision. I could see it happen. I could see the moment he chose. Your mother's family had money, he said. Her parents, her grandmother specifically, there was a trust. I waited. When your grandmother passed, this was 2009, you were in college, she left the estate split. Half to your mother. Half. He stopped. Half to you. The room had gone quiet again. The guests closest to us had stopped pretending not to listen. Half to me, I repeated. Your mother. She told the estate attorney that you'd waived your claim, that you'd signed a disclaimer form. He couldn't look at me now. You didn't sign anything. She signed it. She told the attorney you were estranged, that you didn't want it. He pressed his mouth together. The full estate was $340,000. Your half was $170,000. I heard the number from somewhere outside myself. She took my inheritance, I said. He nodded once. The nod of a man who has been carrying this for 15 years and weighing the cost of it every single day. She used it for the kitchen renovation, he said, and Madison's schooling, and other things. He finally finally looked up at me. I didn't find out until 2 years later, when I found the paperwork. By then it was gone. A pause. I should have told you. I should have done something. I have spent 15 years. He stopped. His eyes were wet. I looked at him for a long moment. I thought about $170,000, about the library shifts and the steakhouse weekends and the booth MBA that I'd finished paying off 4 years ago, about 37 months of mortgage payments, about $31,400 in student loans with Madison's name on them. I thought about what I might have done differently if I'd had $170,000 when I was 22 years old. Then I thought, probably the same things. Probably exactly the same. Did you keep the paperwork? I asked. He blinked. What? The estate documents. The disclaimer form with her signature on it instead of mine. Do you still have them? He looked at me like I was asking something in a language he'd just learned. Then, slowly, in the filing cabinet, in my office. Yes, I kept everything. I nodded once. I looked at Aaron. Aaron looked at me. Okay, I said to my father. Get me those documents. I called Dana Wexler, my attorney, at 6:15 that evening. I was sitting in Aaron's apartment with a cold compress on my cheek, a glass of wine I wasn't drinking, and my laptop open on the coffee table. Dana is 51, has practiced estate and family law in Chicago for 23 years, and has the specific quality of someone who has heard every possible terrible thing a family can do to one another and lost the capacity for shock without losing the capacity for outrage. I told her everything. She was quiet for about 4 seconds. Then, she forged your signature on a legal disclaimer. Apparently, Rebecca, that is estate fraud. I know. With documentation, and if Gerald will provide the originals, this is a viable civil claim, potentially criminal, depending on the DA. I know. Do you want to? Not tonight, I said. Tonight, I want to know what my options are. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what I want to do. We talked for 40 minutes. Dana walked me through the legal landscape with her usual precise efficiency. Statute of limitations considerations, the difference between a civil recovery action and referring the matter to the Cook County State's attorney, what unjust enrichment meant in a practical context, what the realistic range of outcomes looked like. When we hung up, Aaron came and sat beside me. He didn't say anything for a minute. He just sat there, which is one of the things about him. He understands the value of presence without words, the way someone learns it after years of sitting with families in the worst moments of their lives. What are you thinking? He said finally. I'm thinking that I spent 15 years building something from the ground up because I thought I had to, because I thought no one was going to help me. I looked at my hands. And the whole time, my mother had $170,000 of my money sitting in a kitchen renovation and a study abroad semester. Yeah, and I still paid her mortgage for 3 years. Yeah, I picked up the wine, set it down again. I'm also thinking, I said, that she is 61 years old and she just woke up on an ambulance stretcher in front of her friends, and that my father is a man who has been carrying this for 15 years and finally told me the truth. I looked at Aaron. I'm thinking I'm going to file the civil claim. I'm going to recover what I can, and I'm going to walk away from the rest of it. He waited. I'm not going to destroy her, I said. Not because she doesn't deserve it, because I don't want to spend what comes next thinking about her. Aaron looked at me for a long moment. Okay, he said. It's the right call, he said. It's your call, and it's the right one. He put his arm around me. I leaned into him. Outside, Chicago was doing the thing it does on spring evenings. The lake smell coming through the screen, the distant sound of the city, the particular quality of light that comes through high windows in apartments that overlook a city you built your own place in from nothing. We still need to plan a wedding, he said after a while. We do. Our budget, I agreed. He kissed the top of my head. 6 months later, Dana filed the civil complaint in Cook County Circuit Court in September. My father provided the original estate documents, the forged disclaimer, the transfer records, the correspondence between my mother and the estate attorney, without being asked twice. He cooperated with everything. I think it was, for him, the first definitively right thing he'd done in 15 years, and he seemed to understand that. The case was settled before it reached trial. My mother's attorney, a man named Greg Poole, who I suspect spends most of his time on traffic violations and was somewhat out of his depth here, recommended settlement when Dana presented the evidence package. The final number was $194,000, accounting for the original $170,000 plus 15 years of statutory interest at the Illinois rate. I put $100,000 into the Lakeview Family Revocable Trust and directed it to stop paying my mother's mortgage. The remaining $94,000 I split, $47,000 toward Aaron's and my wedding fund, and $47,000 into a separate account I set up for Madison. Not because Madison deserved it, because I had been the kind of person, my whole life, who took care of the people around her even when it cost her something. And I had decided, sitting in Aaron's apartment with a cold compress on my cheek, that I didn't want to stop being that person just because my family had abused it. I just wanted to be more careful about who received it. I texted Madison the account information with a single line. This is yours. No conditions. She called me 20 minutes later. She cried for about 4 minutes without saying much that was coherent. Then she said, I didn't know about any of it. The mortgage, the loans, none of it. I know, I said. How do you just do things like that for people without telling them? I thought about it. Because I was raised to believe that love meant taking care of people quietly, I said. I'm still working out which parts of that to keep. She was quiet. I'm going to be different, she said. I want to be different. Okay, I said. Is that enough? It's a start. My mother called me once, in October. I let it go to voicemail. The message was 4 minutes long and contained the words sorry twice, both times positioned inside a longer sentence about how things could have been handled differently, which is not quite the same as an apology. I have not called her back. I don't know if I will. Aaron and I got married in November. Small and specific. 22 people. A restored farmhouse in Galena, Illinois, cedar and candlelight, and a dinner that went until midnight. My father came. He sat in the second row and cried quietly through the whole ceremony and helped Aaron's mother carry dishes after dinner and didn't try to make it about himself. It was the first family event I've attended in 34 years that felt like something I was allowed to enjoy. The morning after the wedding, Aaron made coffee. Actual coffee. The good kind. The kind you take your time with. And we sat on the farmhouse porch in the early November cold with our coats on, and I held the mug with both hands, and the warmth of it went all the way through. Just warmth. Nothing else. That's how I knew I was going to be okay.